So good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar promoted by the ESPRESSO project. My name is Mario Conci, and I work in the ESPRESSO project. ESPRESSO project is an Horizon 2020 project that aims to create a conceptual smart cities information framework based on open standards. The main goal of the project is to ensure the interoperability of smart city solutions, and we want to help cities avoiding entry barriers or vendor locking. One of our activities in ESPRESSO is also knowledge sharing, and these webinars are part of these activities. We have so far organized 9 webinars, and we want to share knowledge and best practices on the usage of open standards in smart cities. Particularly, the webinar of today is organized together with the Green Digital Charter, that is an initiative promoted by Eurocities. Rebecca is going to tell us more about these initiatives in a while. And the speakers of today are Daniel Sarasa, Smart City Program Manager from City Council Zaragoza, and Antonio Kung, CTO at Trialog. As you know, the topic of today is data management and citizens' privacy in smart cities open governance. So before starting, a few remarks. The webinar is recorded and it will be uploaded on this ESPRESSO website or on the Green Digital Charter platform. And for the questions, so everyone is muted. We will collect the questions at the end, and we would like you to use the questions box. So we would like to collect written questions. If you are more comfortable to ask, so to use your voice, just raise your hand by using the box provided close to your names. So we can start. I leave the floor to Rebecca Portail, who is going to tell us a little bit more about the Green Digital Charter initiative. So, Rebecca, easy.
So, hi everyone, thank you Mario, and welcome all to this joint webinar on data management and privacy in smart cities. So I'm Rebecca, I'm working for the Green Digital Charter, and to word about this project. It is a Eurocities-led initiative gathering 52 European municipalities, all committed to use digital solutions to improve quality of life of their citizens. It is supported by the Guidance Project, which supports the implementation of the Charter and monitors progress of its signatories. So you can follow our past and future activities on our website at www.greendigitalcharter.eu or by following our Twitter account, GDC Charter. Let me now introduce the first speaker, Daniel Sarasa. Daniel is working for a Smart City Program Manager for Zaragoza City Council. Zaragoza signed the Green Digital Charter in 2011. And is a real success story when it comes to smart city and open data. In January of this year, the Zaragoza Citizen Card has been awarded Best GDC Project in terms of citizen engagement and impact on society. More information about all these case studies can be found in our 2016 collection, available on our website. So Daniel is a co-author of Zaragoza's Open Government Strategy and will now present his guidelines for urban big data sharing. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Mario. As Rebecca said, I'm working as a project manager into the Smart City Department of Zaragoza, which is the 5th largest city in Spain. And we set up this Smart City Department in one of the city's flagship innovation hubs, which is Utopia Center for Arts and Technology. And this gives us not only the possibility to launch traditional smart city projects, but also to get into the smart city strategy, different profiles, artists, entrepreneurs, civic agents, etc. I'm going to tell you a little bit what we think about the use and benefits and management of big data in cities, what does big data means for us. But I'm going to do it from a point of view from inside a city hall, a more organizational point of view, challenges and opportunities. We're going to have, after my presentation, a more detailed presentation about what big data technically can be effectively used to create value for cities. But I'm going to focus, as I said, on the organizational aspects and challenges. Now, just a little remark about what big data means for a city. On the left, you can find on the left you can find the traditional processes and meanings, famous 4 V's meanings of big data. But we want to introduce slightly different aspects when it comes to what city halls, how city halls can deal with big data, the processes of asking the right questions, the processes of effectively learning from big data, the governance aspects, and how we can enhance somewhat the feeling of citizenship with big data. We've come out with a slightly different definition about big data because, you know, volume, value, velocity, etc., that changes over time. Okay, and what is big data for an organization cannot be big data for another organization. In general, I would say that big data for us is the data whose handling or analysis sets the organization really out of its comfort zone. Okay, we don't know really, we know there is a lot of potential in it, but we don't know really what to do with that, especially the city halls where we don't have data analytics capabilities, and we have to lean on on external agents. Now, what do we want to do with big data? Well, cities are a great invention, one of the biggest and greatest inventions of humanity, and they perform overall well. We are tackling very big challenges with that, climate change, poverty, etc. But cities have bugs. The fact that we live so many people together leads to impracticalities in transportation, in pollution, quality of life, inequality, etc. So these impracticalities or bugs is what really the smart city is about, is fixing these little problems that we have, little big problems that we have in cities, and we have them in 4 areas: economy, quality of life, democracy, sustainability. So the focus of your city strategy is going to depend on the place of the earth your city is located or the time frame where you live in. Now, for example, in Zaragoza, we're very focused on the economy. We have a high unemployment rate. We are also concerned about democratic issues, for example. Now, how do we cities tackle with this in practicalities, or how do we face this challenge? With innovation. Innovation is accelerating at a greater speed every time, and we are looking, and innovation is coming out from cities. It's coming out of cities. Cities are they have people, and people have ideas. So we need to be able to put these ideas in motion. And you know, the data is the new source of the economy after going through all these sources before. So cities are somewhat trapped in an innovation spiral. We're competing against each other. We need to innovate at a quicker pace every time if we don't want to be left behind. And one of the things that we can do is to think about in this smart city implementation, who is playing this game? In the past, well, the city halls we were mostly responsible for everything that was happening in the city, every system. But now, city operations is a distributed task. Of course, the city hall is accountable and responsible for that, but we have the utilities, the banks, the new internet giants, etc. And this leads to a very complex governance. And what happens is that many of these companies, they're based on, their business models are based on big data. Of course, Google business models is based on big data. Many of these companies have invented and have patents that are founding the big data idea itself. And it's a question of somehow keeping track of these changes from the city hall perspective. And it's a battle between innovation and protectionism, because these companies that I'm showing here, they are somewhat disrupting our local markets, the taxi market, the freight delivery market, etc., the rental apartment rental market. So we need really to address the issue of big data very, very carefully, because we know that we can create a lot of value with big data. Cities, we're sitting on a gold mine, because these companies are using data from the people, and the people are living in cities. So it's like the city halls, we're responsible for this, gold mine that is creating a lot of value for the economy, and we're being taught, okay, you should open your public data, and Zaragoza is one of the cities in Spain that is leading this way of opening data. But opening data can only create a certain amount of value into the overall economy. The rest of the value is leans in the private data. So we think from a city perspective that we should all join forces, and we should all try to open our data, not only the public administrations, but also the big corporations. Okay. Now that does not mean that we need to protect, of course, the legitimate business assets, and it doesn't mean that we're going to open our databases, okay, to each other. So it's not only about sharing data, it's mostly about sharing the knowledge that this data is creating for the benefit of the citizens, okay, of the producers of this data. Now, a practical example that we could think about was we have this citizen card. Rebecca told you about it. It's a card. It's an RFID, very simple card that leads to most of the public services in the city, from transportation to sports, public libraries, Wi-Fi, parking, etc., etc. We have like 17 or 18 different services here. So if we could share this knowledge that we have with the citizen card, with the knowledge that the banks have about economic transactions in the city, the telecom operators, the utilities, the energy, the Twitter, I'm sure that we could have a lot of issues solved in the city, real urban challenges and real urban problems. Now, of course, doing this is most easily said than done, because to effectively do it, we need to tackle many things. For example, privacy. The Moore's law is playing against us. The storage capacity of devices is doubling every 2 years, and this means that more data about us is being recorded. And this famous study about MIT, where if we're able to track 4 of your payments in a credit card, we have 90% of possibilities to be sure that it's you effectively using that card. Well, you know, we think that we live in a world where we should cope with privacy breaches. We are giving away our privacy to buy cheap plane tickets, a better email service, etc. And there is an elegant work by Microsoft, by a lady called Work, about differential privacy, that says basically that if we want to set up these data sharing agreements between different databases, I mean, there's going to be a privacy breach somewhere along the road. So, but you could put some noise into the database, and you could effectively choose the amount of accuracy that you want in your data and the amount of protection that you want. So I think this is a good clue to follow. And there are other projects and other cases where the user would give their data for scientific purposes, as for example people are doing in the project in Barcelona, smartcitizen.me, or people are willing to donate their data for medical reasons, for example. Now, another guideline is that we need to implement agreements between the City Hall and research institutions to implement the feedback loop, in which we are able, as cities or City Hall, to effectively learn what big data is trying to tell us. Another thing that we need to create is good observatories. There is a nice example from Bristol, for example. They've turned their old data dome into an open data observatory. They lead programs throughout Britain with artists to help companies and to help institutions visualize and extract the traits of big data, instead of producing complex reports that nobody understands. Something that similar with what we do in the exploration of the universe. So the stars are better observed from the space, and cities are better observed from cities. We need to create urban observatories. As I said, this is the example of Bristol. And next, with the observatory, usually there is a laboratory, there is a lab, where we link citizens with artists, with entrepreneurs, with the city departments, to be able to extract this value of big data. Now, let's talk a little bit about the questions and answers. You've heard about hackathons, and data is something that is always present in hackathons. But sometimes we do this process the other way around. We find the answers before having the right question. So what we propose is, first, to do civic hackathons, in which people that know how the city works and how what are the problems of the city without technology can put their ideas on the challenges. And in the second phase is the programmers, the people that dominate the technology, that provide solutions. So we need to match knowledge, technical knowledge, with city knowledge. Now, another important thing to think about if we want to effectively share data between the city stakeholders is about cooperation. Cooperation is needed for this, but cooperation is a fragile process. And one of the biggest obstacles for this is the silo effect and the data silos that we have in cities and between organizations. And we need to be to tackle this, we need to set up very, very soft cooperation agreements and governance structures, and very flat also, because we want to set up this agreement into a cooperation dynamics, into the Nash equilibrium. This is the famous Nobel Prize Steve Nash, and the trick here is to be able to set the strategies of all players in this game, the bank, the telecom provider, the utilities, the city hall, etc., into a state of cooperation where the win-win situation is to effectively cooperate. And this can be done through a mix between regulation and incentives. Now, the governance factor is very important, and so there are two possibilities here: a strict hierarchy, which is not possible in this case because, you know, as I said, the smart city is the result of a very complex governance system, or to be able to set up very flat organizational structures where all the agents can be represented, and we also take care of even personal relations between all the stakeholders. We've done that in Ethiopia, or we're trying to do that. And we are trying to set up this ecosystem of very, very diverse actors. Now, the cities can add something to big data, is the connection with the citizens. And for this, it's very important to have artists on board, because artists can help us to visualize what's behind of big data, what data really means about, or is trying to tell us about the functioning or the problems of our city. We're developing some programs with CERN in Switzerland, in which artists and scientists cooperate together to find new radical ideas out of the scientific projects. And we're also taking advantage of our you can see that on the right hand side, on the lower right side of my presentation of the screen, where we use the digital facade of Ethiopia, which is 600 square meter digital facade, to do artistic visualizations on data. Now, another thing that we can do as cities is to lower the technological barrier to the city, because for non-technical citizens, it's very hard to participate on this project, and they can have valuable ideas. So we are advocating for an API, an application programming interface to the smart city, which is human, you know, so a layer of mediators that can lower this barrier to facilitate the connection of the ideas of the people with the smart city projects. And of course, we need to be open and think about new profiles, not only engineers and data scientists here, but we need data journalists, we need artists, we need political scientists. I mean, we need a whole lot, and many professions that were not even represented here. But we need really to be diverse in the types of profile that work for us. Now, I'm going to finish now. One just final remark: we need. I mean, big data is telling us a futuristic dream. Everything can be possible, and we can think that we can aspire to have the perfect machine, the perfect smart city, like a machine. But I would warn you against data-driven government, which is a very sexy thing, but can lead to misunderstanding and can lead to problems. So I think data can help to balance, to put some objectivity into the otherwise very subject decision-making process, but data should not replace politics, media, intuitive civic knowledge, etc. And of course, we need to be very careful of the observer effect. You know, when something is measured, the very measure changes the result of the experiment. And finally, just you know, this great civic thinker, Jamie Lerner, cities are not the problem, they're the solution, and many of the solutions in cities are going to come through big data, but we're going to need everyone else to make them happen. Thank you very much.
So now, thank you, Daniel. Now let's going to listen about Antonio Kung's presentation. Please, Antonio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Antonio Kung speaking. I hope you see my screen. Let me introduce myself. I'm Antonio Kung. I'm the CTO of a French company, Trialog. It's a French software house which focuses on IoT. And we're involved in domains such as energy, mobility, health, care. I have an engineering background, so I'm not afraid to go into the details of technology background. You will see that. But I will also talk about other aspects. Okay, I'm very much involved with standardization for privacy. I'm the editor of Privacy Engineering, ISO 27550. I'm involved with the new upcoming standards on security and privacy for big data, 20547 Part 4. And I'm the rapporteur of Privacy in Smart Cities, a study period in ISO, and Privacy Guidelines in the IoT, another study period in ISO. Things are moving, I have to say. I'm also a member of an informal community called IPEN, Internet Privacy Engineering Network, which was launched by EDPS, the European Data Supervisor. And it's a community where we exchange ideas about how we do it. And I'm editing a wiki called ipen.trialog.com, where you have all the information about those standards. So you can go through it and have a look of what's going on. Okay. I'm leading, that's the reason why I'm part of this webinar. I'm actually involved in EIP SCC. I'm leading the initiative called Citizen Approach to Data Privacy by Design. Okay. And this is because I was the coordinator of the Prepare support action, and we made a commitment to EIP SCC. Prepare has published some tools, some methodological tools to implement privacy and get compliance with the GDPR. So I'm going to make a presentation taking a policymaker or a smart city stakeholder viewpoint. Okay, and the point is that we've seen that with Daniel's presentation is that we're dealing with very complex ecosystems. Okay, so smart cities, of course, touches upon big data. That was actually the talk from Daniel. Okay, but also it touches upon IoT. Okay, but on top of this, we have domains: smart grids, health, transport, mobility, and so forth. And when we build those systems, we have a number of concerns. So we are going to focus today on privacy, but of course we have security concern or cyber security concern, and of course safety concerns. You have those concerns which actually in a city we have to deal with. Okay, so it's a major undertaking and it's very complex. But when it comes to privacy, we must take into account, in Europe at least, the GDPR, which we have to follow on May 25th, 2018. Okay, and this text deals very clearly with a number of roles that we have to deal with actually in smart cities: data controllers, data processors, data protection officers. We have to be nominated in all public authorities, and those DPOs we have responsibilities. They cannot be junior people because they will be liable. Okay. And all public authorities will have to have such a DPO. Companies dealing with a large number of data subjects will also have to a DPO. Okay. The sanctions for breaches will be very high, so up to 20 million euro or 4% of the annual turnover. The policymakers must therefore understand a number of terms. So we talk about privacy by design, or PBD. You will see that. Okay, privacy by design is actually the fact that you institutionalize privacy management. So it's not only technical, but it's also and probably mainly organizational. Okay, and the second thing where actually is technical is that you have to integrate privacy concerns when you engineer the systems. Okay. Another term is privacy by default, and this is by default that you have to take the highest level of protection, okay, which is actually, it's a bit confusing when you think about big data. Another term is PIA, or Privacy Impact Assessment. There is an obligation to carry out what we call a Privacy Impact Assessment. That is a process which evaluates the impact on privacy. I'll come back to that with some more technical explanation, okay. I'm using the terms privacy by design, privacy impact assessment, but the GDPR doesn't use those terms. It uses the term data protection by design, data protection impact assessment instead of privacy. But I will of course, the lawyer will make a difference, but I will not. Okay. So when it comes to the municipality stakeholders, this is the complex picture. Okay. So he has to start to deal with, on top, the citizen. Okay. The citizen, of course, is engaged. The citizen has to provide consents, and the citizen might have requests. Okay, what did you do with my data? And he might even complain. Okay, so he provides the consent to a data controller here. Okay, which is a stakeholder operating a system. For instance, a big data operating system. Okay, and the data controller we have to comply with privacy regulation on the right. Data controller might be complex, so he might actually deal with other people in the chain. So what you call a data processor. Think about a bank. A bank is a data controller because it controls all your financial data, your accounts, what you put in, and so forth. Okay, but the management of the account might be done by another company. So this would be a data processor. Okay. Those organizations will have to deal with suppliers because they need suppliers to provide them the technology and the systems to work with. Okay, so we have integrators and suppliers. Okay, what will be the difference? Is actually the integrator is providing the global system, and he knows about the purpose, so he's able to carry out privacy impact assessment and privacy by design. Now the point is that the supplier, so for instance, you buy an operating system, you buy a storage system, okay? This is very generic, and so the requirements will be provided by the other stakeholders, but the purpose would be unknown. Okay? When we think about this, the municipality stakeholders must deal with this whole ecosystem, okay? So we have to deal with contracts, so he's providing contracts, please operate this application for me, okay? But since he has privacy constraints and regulation constraints, he has to have an understanding and management of all the PIAs that that are under his jurisdiction. Okay, and he will have also all the agreements for data exchange that are under his jurisdiction. On top of this, he will have to interact with the citizen to provide transparency, things like that. So managing privacy is complex for smart cities. Now, if you take the IoT vision, I would say it's more or less a supply chain vision. Okay, so in general, we show them as verticals. We call them verticals. Okay, so we start from below the things. Okay, in the Internet of Things, so sensors, devices, but even a cloud solution is often considered as a thing. Okay, so they are provided by suppliers. The purpose is unknown. Okay, above this you can build everything. Okay, then you have the integrator. He put them together, the purpose of which is known, and then you have the operators. Okay, the operators you can have many. It could be the same, but actually operating several applications. For each of those applications, you need to have a privacy impact assessment. Okay, and this is to be handled by the smart city officer. So he's not only dealing with one privacy impact assessment, but actually with several. Now, if you take the big data vision, the vision is a little bit different. So I call it the sharing chain instead of a supply chain. Okay, so we have data sets which are made available and then which are transformed. Okay, so I have an initial version. I transform it. I'm doing data analytics and so forth. Okay, so here we have a chain where we also have obligations. So we have what we call a data sharing agreement. Okay, and those data sharing agreements, exactly the same thing, must be dealt with by the smart city officer. He must understand what's going on, and he must track that. Let's assume you have in the middle a data breach, okay, a privacy breach. Okay, how do you deal with this? Okay, you need to have the data sharing agreements to see where it came from and where you can fix that. So what are the concerns? So I took again a vertical vision where we have on the left the demand side from the policymaker down to the supplier. Okay, basically from a privacy management point of view, we have the policymakers, the operators, and the supplier. Okay, the operators are data controllers and data processors. They have all three concerns to deal with. Okay, amongst others, but those are the three important ones for privacy. How do I ensure legal compliance? how do I manage my privacy? How do I build a system which is compliant? Okay, so when it comes to the legal compliance, it's GDPR in Europe. Okay, when it comes to management concern, we want people to provide the evidence that it's done properly. So we have PIAs and sharing agreements. And when it comes to the system building, we need to show that we do privacy by design. Okay. The policymaker is not doing that himself. He's just wanting to have a compliance check, and he wants to make sure that everything is transparent, because he will be accountable with respect to the citizens. Okay, the operators and will just perform the things that actually are in the GDPR, and the suppliers will also, if the requirements are properly stated. Okay, so if the requirements are not done properly, then it could be that the supplier doesn't do a great job. Okay, so you see that the whole chain must follow the constraints of privacy. Now, I want to show a little bit what is a privacy impact assessment. Okay, it's a risk assessment. So when you start, you start to identify what are the potential privacy breaches. Okay, one example could be you have a banking account, and then someone knows about what you are doing in your banking account. Okay, so you're transferring money, you are buying things and things like that, and somehow it gets known to the public. This is a privacy breach. Okay, so what are the risk sources which would create this privacy breach? For instance, you could have a vulnerable system. So someone is hacking into the banking system, okay, the IT system, and then getting out of it the data and putting it on the web. This is a threat. But another source is the data processing. So actually, it could be that the bank is providing information to an insurance company. Okay, so this could be a privacy breach unless consent was given. Okay, but another privacy breach is your employee that is dealing with your account just mention, look at your account and tell to another people. Okay, this is a privacy breach. So you can see the privacy breach is not only technical; it can be very much organizational. So some human can behave in such a way that you have a privacy breach. Okay, so what are the consequences? You have on the right the impact on citizen privacy, of course. So this is the thing we'll have to deal with. Okay, and then you also have the impact on organization. Okay, because it could show that the organization is not well protected. It can show that the organization is actually not very rigorous on its handling, and it could have an impact on its reputation. Okay, so actually, when we consider the whole thing, I have to say that the focus on privacy mainly comes from the thing on top. So focus on personal data processing, and the PIA is about the citizen privacy. Okay. Of course, in an organization, you will deal with other part because you also want the system to be secure. You want to check that it doesn't jeopardize your own business. Okay. Once you have done that, so this is only for one privacy breach. You have to do it for all the privacy breaches that you can identify. Then you identify measures. Okay, and the measures are again organizational and technical. So both. If you only deal with one, you lose the thing. It's not a proper privacy impact assessment. So this is what is required by the GDPR and in general for privacy management. Now, privacy by design is now much more associated with the building of a system. So below we have the life cycle and we build the system. So when we start on the left, we only have privacy principles. Okay, then we analyze the system. And we take into account the privacy principle and we comment with the privacy requirements. Okay. Once we have the privacy requirements, we will design the protection aspect, which we often call privacy controls. Okay. Sometimes we also call them privacy enhancing technologies or PETs. Okay. It's just that I personally prefer to use the term privacy control because in PET you have the T word, which means that actually it's technical. But sometimes it's not only technical because it could be an architecture vision. Okay, for instance, you could have a decision that when a car is collecting data, the data is always kept forever in the car, not in the cloud. Okay, and this is an architecture decision that obviously has some benefits in terms of PIA or of privacy. Sorry. So now the PIA is a risk assessment that is done along the life cycle process. So it is iteration based, because you start here when you do analysis, you find a solution and you iterate. This is very important. This is the link between the PIA and the privacy by design. I want to show to you what has been done in one example. That's the Sharing Cities. That's the H2020 project. Okay. So you have the website here. It's one of those big smart city projects which involve the city of London, Milan, Lisbon as lighthouse cities, and Bordeaux, Burgas, and Warsaw as followers. Okay, so we started a program, and I was involved in helping them. I had a workshop in March, a 2-day workshop, where we checked the case of the cities of London, Milan, and Lisbon. Okay. One thing that is very important I must highlight is that in those workshops, you cannot just put junior people. You have to put the DPO there, because he has to understand what's going on. It's strategic. Okay, that's what they did. Okay, we'll have another workshop in June where we work on more details. And we are in a learning phase. So what the goal is to learn how to apply effectively a management plan for GDPR compliance. Okay. So what are the next steps to me on this kind of thinking? So it's of course getting into some common work on privacy management. Okay. So we need to have guidelines, and those are items. It's just an example, items that we have identified during the workshop. Okay. So we need to come up with a privacy management plan where we define what is the governance scheme, or who is deciding. Okay. Who is deciding? Who is in charge? The role and duties, and the resources. And so sorry, here you see start, it should be staff. Okay, I typed it too fast. So resources and staff. So how many people do you put there, who are in charge, and things like that. Okay, then you have to decide about the management. So we have a repository of PIAs and data sharing agreements. Okay, how do we manage that? We have to interact with the citizens. Do we have a dashboard? Okay, how do we lodge complaints? How would you handle that? Okay. What about breach management? Do we have a staff to handle that when we have breach management? Technical staff to restore, and also a PR staff to, of course, to deal with the citizens. Okay, and of course, continuous improvements. And the guidelines should be, of course, helpful. So it must include templates for PIAs, data sharing agreement, privacy notice template, and also guides for suppliers. Last slide. So what about standardization? Okay, standardization is totally new. We have not many things. So on the left here, you have the current work. Okay, so you have something called privacy framework. Basically, it mentions the principles. You have the PIA. Yes, it's there. It's actually not available yet, but probably this year it will be accessible. We checked the privacy impact assessment. Privacy engineering. This is new. So that's myself. It's going to be available maybe in 1.5 years. Code of practice is more some help. And you have for management what we often call PIMS, Privacy Information Management System. This is new. Okay, so it's going to be available maybe next year. Now there's nothing about IoT, but my guess is that it must be supply chain oriented. There's nearly nothing about big data. There's one thing ongoing, but it's in progress. But my guess is it has to be sharing chain oriented. And finally, for smart cities, I really think that it must be management oriented. And we are trying to define the objectives of such standards right now. Thank you. So I'm done, Mario.
Thank you, Antonio, for your presentation. So now let's open the floor for questions. I haven't received any written questions. Is there someone that would like to say something or to ask something to our speakers? You can, as said, you can use the written way, so using the questions box, or raise your hand. So just checking the box close to your name. Okay, we have a raised hand from Magnus Josefsson. Please, Magnus.
Yes, thank you, and thank you both for very good presentations. I suppose the question is more for Daniel, but there seems to be a fundamental tension between, you know, this idea of the use of big data and then the new GDPR, which essentially aims to curtail the use of of data. So I'd value your thoughts on that.
Thank you. The question was for Daniel, you said? Oh.
Yes.
So
Daniel? Okay.
Daniel?
Yes, I had my mic muted. Okay. Hi, Magnus. So yeah, of course there is this tension. My thoughts on that is a way forward would be maybe not to focus on sharing data, but to focus more on sharing knowledge. Okay. So we don't need to interconnect databases. We know what that means and what that can. And if we connect databases, I mean, we enter into a completely different and unknown path of problems. And so maybe it's better to establish the agreement in terms of sharing knowledge. Okay. So what, for example, what Uber knows about the traffic in the city? What does Telefonica or Vodafone knows about, you know, mobility, or what does a bank knows about the financial economic problems in a certain neighborhood, or can we, you know, and if we can effectively find mechanisms to share this knowledge, and then each of these actors can work on their own databases, extracting value and putting this value in the table, and maybe we could link this knowledge together and create new solutions and have new insights into what's happening in the city.
Can I add something? Antonio speaking. So I'm working several projects on big data, and I see two trends that are trying to solve that. Okay, the first one is very well known, is open data. So by default, you create something that normally is anonymous. So you have to do anonymization. At the end, of course, when you combine data, you must have the risk of re-identification. Okay, so this is basically the risk you have to solve. And if there is a re-identification risk, you have to come back to the way the open data was built up and change it. Okay, so this is the first answer, and I think open data is booming, and it will explode. I'm pretty sure. Okay. The second thing is what we call personal data ecosystems. That they actually, if I have a car, I'm going to collect data. My data is my data, so it's going to be made available maybe in the cloud, but only I have access. Okay, and I will somehow sell or make available my data for big data. So if exactly what Daniel said, if to get this knowledge you need to access it, then there is a kind of negotiation. Can I access your data in such a way that I get information on this knowledge? Okay. And I think this is a second trend, the personal data ecosystem trend, where actually everything, but everything, is handled by the user. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Antonio. And there are other two questions for Daniel. Daniel, can you read it? I mean, I forwarded you. I don't know if you can read it on your screen, or if not.
Okay. Yeah, let me check.
You should see them.
Yeah, hold on. Okay. So what exactly your city is doing with tools and feedback loop for citizen engagement? Okay, from Long Pam. All right. So I think the easiest way to visualize this is we have set up what we call the R&D lab of the city. It's called the Open Urban Lab. And we're launching a set of new initiatives from this lab. This is what we call the application program, the human API to the smart city. For example, we have the program coming out of this lab. It's called 100 Ideas for Zaragoza. Okay, so the goal is to put 100 ideas, bottom-up ideas, in motion in the following years. We implement this notion of first doing civic hackathons, first asking the right questions, and then doing techie hackathons, matching questions with technological answers. What also, in the innovation activities that we do, we tend to think about the smart city services without technology. We think that approach is very useful. So let's think about new public services, innovative public services without technology. If they work in terms of process without technology, if we add some technology, it booms, it flourishes, okay? Because we as engineers tend to put the technology first and try to adapt the service, the process, the outcome to the technology that we already had in mind, you know? That is something very common with us, between the engineers. So, and putting out the technology out of the process lowers these barriers, so citizens come up. And another very important notion is the notion of open source. Open source projects and an open source city should be accessible. And accessible not only means the right to know how the code is written, but also that the technology is not a barrier to know how the city works. Okay, that was the first question. The other question from Ana Melchor is, what other activities different from hackathons have Zaragoza organized to connect public administration and the other city organizations? Okay. Okay, for example, we organize what we call recreating the citizen card. Recreating the Citizen Card is a program that we run with the University of Zaragoza, with the students in the Master of Design. And the students come to Utopia Center for Arts and Technology to do design thinking dynamics and redesign and add new services on our Citizen Card. And for example, one of these services that they came up with is called Share Zaragoza, and it's about being able to send a piece of your citizen card with a mobile app to a visitor, for example. So I can send you a theater ticket, I can send you a bus ticket to your iPhone, even if you don't have a citizen card and you're not a citizen of Zaragoza. And we're launching this project as one of the challenges that our programmers in the hackathon needs to solve. This is one of the examples. We have some others.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I have a final question for Antonio, and it is about the data protection officer. So can you tell us a little bit more about what procedure to follow to hire a DPO, and what skills does this person needs to have? What are his tasks?
I would say it's a little bit beyond my knowledge because it's lawyer-oriented. Most DPOs are lawyers, but I can tell you my experience is that when discussed currently with the cities, you will have in general, some legal-oriented people who understand very well the GDPR, probably better than I do, okay? And they are either advisor or they are not so in general not so high level, but at some point when you have a PIA you have to sign it off, okay? and the signing off must be done by someone that is responsible. It's like signing a contract, right? So every city will have to understand this. And in general, I would say it has to be an experienced big guy that we understand fully the privacy legislation and has been, let's say, very much in contact with the technical people. Okay, it's very rare. It's nearly impossible to have someone that has both a degree or both understanding. As in general, those who exist, they serve as a consultant to help. Okay, so I was told we're going to hire like 50,000 DPOs in the next 2 years. Okay, so it's employment rate 0. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, thank you. We have a very last question from Long Palm, again for Antonio. Do citizens have to identify their real identities when they participate in public forums at city level? What do you think of this regulation?
Yeah. Okay. So not sure what the question is referring to something special, but I would say that it should never be the case that a citizen will have to reveal his name. Okay. What we really want to have is having a proof that the citizen is part of the community and things like that, or you're entitled to do things. But we have so many technologies available now to ensure that actually it's done in a kind of anonymous way. Okay. So I would say the answer is no. So you never. It would be an infringement on privacy, by the way. So.
Okay, so let's collect the last question from Sepe for Daniel. Sepe from the city of Ghent. So an important question concerning the citizen's card. The processing of the personal data coming from the citizen card is obviously based on consent. How can a city create trust so that the citizens agree to share their personal data in the public interest?
Okay. Yes, this is a very good question. Because surprisingly, we have no problems as citizens in giving away our data to companies that exist in Silicon Valley, and it's very difficult to have our rights of access, cancel, modification, etc. with these data, or even go to court with these companies. But we have more psychological problems in giving away our data to our local administration, which I mean is the closest administration for us. We can go to the to speak directly to the public servant if we want, that is responsible for data management, and we could, I mean, it's very close relationship. But this happens, and the criticism we've received in the first years of our citizen card deployment is about this. It's about, oh, I don't want my city hall being my big brother and know everything that I do. So. Well, I'm sure that many people didn't find that the services that we were offering in the new citizen card were worth the cost of giving away their data, so they didn't choose the citizen card. But most of the people in the city, they found them interesting enough. But we're not sharing the data. We're not doing that. We're just keeping the data for our operational purposes, and we're just using the data internally. Okay, we want to do one more step in the development of our citizen card. We want to create the anonymous card. Okay, so everyone can have this card, tourists, even if they're not registered in the city, or for people that don't want to give away their data. Okay, and even with the anonymous card, I'm sure that we're going to be able to create a lot of value in terms of knowing how the city really works. And with the anonymous card, we're going to have, I'm not going to say we wouldn't have to face the problem of privacy issues, but we will have less problems with privacy issues, because, you know, the card will just have an ID. There will be no personal link with no link with personal data with that.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for the answers. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Rebecca, for organizing with me this webinar. Thank you to the Green Digital Charter. And thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. As said, we recorded it, and we are going to upload it on the Espresso website. So you can find it on our webpage, espresso-project.eu. And stay tuned for the next one. So thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you.